Yesterday, former President Barack Obama, he addressed Texas House Dems in a video conference with them regarding their walkout 2 weeks ago. Watch this.
What we all recognize is we can't let a systematic assault on democracy just happen and stand by. And so because of your actions, because of your courage, what you've seen is California responding, other states looking at what they can do to offset this mid-decade gerrymandering that is highly irregular and is not what we should be doing to balance out the maps for this upcoming election. And I think we became a little bit complacent over the years. We assumed that things would continue to get better, that our democracy would become more inclusive, that it would become more fair, that we'd make it easier for people to vote rather than harder for people to vote, that the votes would be counted rather than suppressed. And what we forgot is that history doesn't always move in a straight line, and it's not always 2 steps forward and another 2 steps forward. Sometimes it's 2 steps forward and a step back. And we're in a moment right now where not just gerrymandering, but efforts at voter suppression, efforts at questioning the results of elections, efforts at the executive branch unilaterally doing things that bypass Congress and the people's representatives, militarization of cities, politicization of our justice departments and our military. Those are trend lines that remind us that this precious democracy that we've got is not a given. It's not self-executing. It requires us to fight for it. It requires us to stand up for it.
You know, Matt, it's a little hard for me to hear President Obama say, we got complacent. I say, I know black folks love this from Obama, but no, he got complacent. More than 1,000 state seats were lost during his 8 years. The DNC was not strong. Obama for America supplanted the DNC. And the redistricting effort that he's been working on with Eric Holder, that was launched after he left office. Let's be real clear. Rahm Emanuel, when he was Obama's chief of staff, would often deride progressives saying, I'm sick of them talking about the Supreme Court. Right there was a problem. Rahm Emanuel, James Carville, Paul Baglia were critical of Howard Dean for having a 50-state strategy. They wanted to focus on national. So when Obama says we, he got to look in the mirror. And we got to be willing to actually offer that critique because we were all there and we saw it. And a lot of us were saying, don't ignore the states. Stop focusing on national. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, and it sounds like that critique is not only the truth, but it's timely. However, it's subordinate to the task at hand, which is do not cede control, don't let them get any more seats, right? So that's a conversation that we definitely have to have, and a conversation that has to be had, frankly, so history doesn't repeat itself in the future. But as for right now, I think Mayor Lee's comments in response to my question earlier are perfectly suited to respond to kind of what Mr. Obama said, insofar as it's a matter of uniformity now, right? I mean, the brilliance of this is I don't know enough of the history, and I wish I could give you an example of this. But I love the idea that, Trump calls Abbott or calls him out or calls him like Raffensperger, most likely, and says, hey, give me 5 more seats. And then people in other states say we can counter that by working in our own legislature to make sure that we counterbalance, the gerrymandering that they're doing. And that requires not only uniformity, but it requires that everyone stand up at the same time and realize what he's doing over there, he will soon be trying to do here. And we absolutely cannot let that happen. And I think it's important to recognize that, we both need to look at that necessary critique that you're talking about, but we need to recognize that that's a conversation for tomorrow. The conversation for today is we cannot lose any further control. And in fact, we need to leverage the fact that the economy is bad. People are not happy with the militarization. They're not happy with the open fascism that they see this White House espousing. Therefore, we got to stand up. And the time is to do that across this country in every way we possibly can, especially on the local level and the legislative, level in the state houses. And I wanted to speak to that to one end. Here in Texas, as you mentioned, the Democrats are talking about coming back, at least as I saw yesterday. But my local state senator is one of two state senators, at least in this area, that did not leave. And, he issued a whole press release about, we want to make a strong legislative record and the whole deal. But he's getting excoriated by local politicos and saying, we need you to stand up and grow a spine. This is the time that you need to dip just like everybody else and show them that we will do whatever it takes to win. And that's what Democrats have not done enough. That's what they're called to do now. And we have to stand up together to do that.
Well, Michael, I'm not as good as moving on or focusing on only the now as some other people. And here's my particular point, Michael. And again, I know because I was there. I remember in 2008 where they had the Texas primary and Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama brought out massive numbers. Hillary Clinton, and it was called the Texas two-step. Hillary Clinton won the vote, but then there was a second vote within the precincts, and Obama won that. That was massive energy. Michael, I remember talking to the chair of the Texas Democratic Party at the time, and he said, finally, we are going to see money and interest and resources coming into Texas. Obama wins. None of that happened. None of it happened. He and the Democrats fly into Dallas, Houston, Austin, raise $5, $8, $10 million, and they would leave. Texas, the infrastructure was not built. You didn't have an increase in the county parties. They actually saw Republicans solidify their lead. I just need people to watch. I was there. In 2012, when Obama won re-election, I was standing there waiting to go on CNN. And I was standing next to Senator, then Congressman Chris Van Hollen, now Senator, saying, don't y'all know y'all can mobilize and organize and potentially win Texas or Georgia? He says, no, we can't. Too red. So what happened in Georgia? Well, Stacey Abrams and Raphael Warnock and others said, no, we can do that. And they actually launched the New Georgia Project and New Georgia Voter Project. And that's exactly what they did. I remember telling Van Hollen, you got 2 million Latinos who are eligible but unregistered. Texas has the most eligible black voters in the country. No, we're not going to do that. And I said, that's the problem. I said, so you basically are conceding. And so I do believe, so part of the reason we are where we are right now, and Matt, this is why we got, and I'm sorry, some people got to look in the mirror, the Republicans have solidified their power in Texas because when Obama was there for 8 years, they did not organize and mobilize Texas. So guess what? You don't do it for 8 years, and now you're looking between 2025, and they actually have control of the legislature. They have control of the governor's mansion, the House, and the Senate. And so people are going to have to stop saying, well, we. No, folk are going to have to own that thing and saying, what I ignored, and I fundamentally believe that the problem that Democrats have today is that too many of them ignored what was happening on the state level over the last 10 to 15 years, and they were only focused on national elections, and Republicans played the long game and said, hey, all power is not in Washington, D.C., it's also in state capitals.
Yeah, that's a good argument. And I remember when a lot of those fights were taking place. I remember when people were saying you need to build that infrastructure in Texas and you can win, build the infrastructure in Georgia, you can win, but also Florida. Okay, if I remember correctly, that same argument was made like in Florida. You don't have that infrastructure built for Democrats in Florida. And then, yes, there was
Florida used to be
emphasis.
Michael. Let's not run past that. Florida used to be a competitive state. It was a purple state, and the reality is the lack of leadership. And again, I just need people to just be honest. Okay, when Obama won, he got rid of Howard Dean. He put in Tim Kaine. He was an awful DNC leader. Then he followed that up with Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She was an awful DNC leader. And so, and we just got to put it out there. When you examine the problem today, you cannot ignore the previous 10, 20 years. You go to any doctor and all of a sudden you have some health issues today, he's going to say, well, how have you been living for the past 20 years? It didn't just pop up magically. And what I'm saying is people have to recognize ignoring these things 10, 20 years ago is why we're in the position we are in right now.
We spent too much.
Yeah. It's dealing with the infrastructure. It's not just voting. It's not just Kamala Harris was down, I think, 7 million votes from Biden Harris in 2020 when they got 81 million votes. It's not just that. It's the lack of infrastructure built in certain states. And speaking to the state legislature, I remember the discussion. I remember the fight and how under President Obama, and I voted for Obama twice, okay? But having these conversations, I think, is good and healthy so that we can identify mistakes that have been made in the past so we don't make them again. But I remember that in the state legislatures across the country, Democrats got killed in the state legislatures, okay? And that conversation took place at that time also. And the conversation dealing with the importance of the Supreme Court. It wasn't until really, I think, after Trump wins in 2016 that then Democrats really start realizing, oh, damn, how important the Supreme Court is, especially when Roe versus Wade was overturned. When Trump got 3 Supreme Court justice nominees confirmed, okay, then all of a sudden, then people were, oh, damn, we got to focus on the Supreme Court, okay? And Republicans played the long game. And Mitch McConnell was instrumental in this because Mitch McConnell made it his lifelong mission to get as many federal judges confirmed as possible. And just very quickly, when Republicans took back control of the Senate in 2014, they blocked 103 federal judge nominations from President Barack Obama, and they blocked Merrick Garland, the nomination to the Supreme Court, which left all that open for Donald Trump to do a slam dunk. And these are lifetime appointments. So we have to understand that 3 branches of the federal government is not just the executive branch. It's not just the president. You got the legislature, the federal legislature. You got the Supreme Court. You got, the federal. And keep in mind the state legislature also.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.